Well, welcome to What's Broken. It's starting to get cold outside, and I don't have a heated garage to work in. So I'm going to work on an inside project. What I have here was given to me by one of my sisters. And it's a very old very heavy sewing machine. Its brand name is Galonia, and I honestly haven't been able to find a whole bunch about it on the internet. There's a bit, but nothing about this particular model. So I don't know, I'm just going to see if I can get it working. Came with the foot treadle or foot switch. And these two plugs would normally go there and there. However, I don't know if you'll be able to see this that well. These are the old Bakelite ends, and I did go down, I took these down to a pretty good electronics supply place in Calgary here, and they weren't able to match me up with anything that's even remotely close. I think I'm going to take apart where it plugs in and a few other things, and just see what I can come up with for a different wiring system or plug system or something. The other thing I have here, it's from a Singer. It's just a more updated foot switch. Some of this wiring's wrapped with black electrical tape, so I'm thinking maybe that has to be looked at or changed out or upgraded or something. Plug the looks to be quite a basic. I don't know what that is, maybe some kind of bobbin? And I have no idea what this is. Yeah. Such is the fun. So pretty basic mechanism underneath from the looks of it. We'll start popping it apart and see what we come up with. First thing will be to get rid of some of this electrical tape and see what it's hiding. Yeah, for whatever reason, both of these wires are split, split or cracked. power comes into these two, which I'm assuming is the black or the hot wire. It's then broken when or an open circuit when the foot pedal is off, and as you press down on the foot pedal, it completes the circuit. I think I'll take the motor off. And we'll take it apart and see if we can get into replace this length of wire, and at the same time come up with some kind of go-between plug. I might just wire it up so it's permanently wired to the foot feet. I'm not trying to restore this, I'm just going to try to get it working. Voila, and the motor is out. Assuming these two black plastic screws are the probably the brushes. Okay, so remember that Hamilton Beach was to the outside. Remind me of that. That must be an oil port. It doesn't feel like there's any play in the bearing. There's one. Uh-oh. One brush from somewhere. Okay, so the brushes go through after the armature is set in place. I get it. I wonder how this case splits. Oh. Little washer that came out from the bottom end. Yeah, this wiring's a little bit iffy. I think perhaps this Hamilton Beach little plate has to come out. I think this one screw There we go. Remember where these all came from, eh? Kind of scary what passed for insulation 100 years ago or whatever. Or maybe not quite 100, but maybe it is 100. Yeah, I'll take that into someone. And through the magic of video, we'll be right back with an answer. I didn't get to an electrician yet. I took it and started washing it up on the, just in the sink. And these two wires were wrapped with this insulation, we'll call it. I just took it to the sink under hot water and used some good old dishwashing detergent to get rid of some of the old oil and schmegma that's on it. Yeah, they have been soldered. So I'll desolder them and probably resolder, you know, a 6 or an 8 or a 10-inch piece of wire to get started. And then I can tuck it back through and bring it out. I don't really want to put any money into this until I can see if the motor will run. So I noticed when I went to use this soldering iron on my boat, I fixed up some of the wiring on it. It wasn't really working all that well. That's a little gobbed up on the end, but that'll clear up. Okay, I did drop it once or twice and broke some big chunks out of the back, so did a rather interesting epoxy repair job with some good old 5-minute epoxy. Seems to work. It's a nice heavy duty one. As I've said in other videos, I'm a much better welder than I am a solderer. Oh yeah, that's getting hot like right away. There's one. There's the udder. Again, not being an electrician, I'm not sure if that serves a specific purpose or it's not really even tape, it's more like cloth or something. Well, who knows how they did it 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years ago. These are going to need to be fed through here first. So I got some 0.4 and some 4.5. I think I'll probably double shrink them just to be on a safe side. I'll slip the black on first. Because that's going to go over top of the yellow. Let that cool for a minute. Try and get a good wrap on these ones. And we'll get the second coating done, or heat shrink. I think I'll go clean some of the oil and grime off some of these parts, and we'll put it back together and maybe hook it up and see if it goes round and round. Well, I'm waiting for everything to dry. Just going to go around this armature and buff it up a bit. It all appears to be in, to my eye anyway, in working shape. There's some packing inside here that holds the oil in order to lubricate the shaft, keep everything cool. And it got wet, obviously, when I washed all the grease and debris out. So I'm going to let this sit for a while and dry out and bring you back when I start putting it together. Okay, so before I put the motor back together, I just want to check continuity. I don't know if you can see that on the windings. That one's good. And that one's good. Make sure there's no shorts between the two. Yeah, that part looks okay. Now the other thing I did was I took apart the foot pedal. Going to clean up the contacts, and main reason I took it apart was this wire that's, you know, up to 100 years old. It's really, really soft. So it's pretty deteriorated. And I did notice that there's a break in it. So that's never good when it comes to wiring. So I'll take the leads off and replace this with some new wire. Looks like somebody has been in here and did something. Covered it with a piece of black tape. I don't think that's 100 years old. Just going to hook things up temporarily to make sure that the motor works before I put any more effort or time into this vintage unit. Okay. Give those a little cleanup. Yes, this wire has seen better days. Okay. Slide the wire back through the bushing. I think this just clips into place. There we go. Just have to pop this screw back in right there. We'll just tighten these screws up. We'll split this end because I'll be splicing this into the black wire. in order to regulate current flow to the motor. Now the next step, we'll be putting this back together. Good, good. We're hooked up to the contacts for the brushes. This was orientated like that, so we want the, better not forget this little washer. And we want the oil port at the top. Before I get that far, these two little guys go right there. There's one brush. And number 2. That's better. So aside from some of the other electrical that needed to be changed, what's prompted most of this is these 100-year-old Bakelite connectors. They don't make them anymore. I guess that's the long and I could probably try to find something that may or may not work, but it's really not worth it. Even on eBay, I think these, I saw one very similar to this. It was going for $50 at an auction. I try to fit the spring into here. Oh, there we go. Let's tighten this screw up. And then the original wiring affair for the plugs all sat back behind the motor or behind the machine. I'm going to do away with that. I'll hang on to these parts, but I think I'll put this cover back on and then just zip strap these wires once I put a plug on the end of them. Okay, so I just ran the wire coming out of the motor through the old plug-in assembly, put a zip tie on it, some heat shrink to hold it back together because I had separated it. Now, put a little solder on the end of these. Good, good. Pop the screws back in. Get in there. Didn't have any black or brown heat shrink in this size, so looks like it'll have to be white. There you go. Now that'll plug into the wires that come through the foot pedal and control the speed of the motor. Okay, so I decided to sacrifice a white extension cord. Couldn't find a brown one, so I don't think it'll affect the sewing. And I determined which one was the neutral and which was the hot plug. So the ones that I marked black like that, those are the hot lines. First thing I think I want to do is slip over some heat shrink. I think like the other stuff I'll double wrap these just to be on the safe side. Once this cools down a bit, I'll slide the heat shrink over and seal it up, and then connect the foot pedal to the other two, which splits the black line, or the hot line. Slide the second coating over. I'll slide a final protective cover to cover both of those, and I'll do the same to the other one on the other side. Let that cool for a second or two. Get a second layer over it. I'll slide the final cover over both. There we have the final product. The foot pedals in the middle, splitting the black wire. Now we can plug it in and see if the sewing machine goes round and round. I'm just going to take a minute and sort of wipe down. I don't know when the last time this thing was cleaned. Incidentally, I did do a little bit of Google search on the motor and the model and a little more about this. And whereas I thought it was a brand name Galonia, it's actually a early 1900s Hamilton Beach Motor Company. Made a number of different items. A lot of them used the exact or pretty much the same motor. Where I remember Hamilton Beach from was the milkshake machines, back when you used to be able to get a real milkshake. Anyhow, yeah, I guess one of the ones they made was this Galonia with the Hamilton Beach Model A motor, and the result is what we're looking at. Put a little dab of oil here and there. Not really sure where all it should be oiled, but I think any place I see a pivot point. Okay, well, I cut the plug off the end of the extension cord because this will plug into the sewing machine. It's into the motor. So I think to start, I just want to put a little bit of solder on these ends. Helps to keep them from getting frayed. That should work for that one. Push that under a little bit, crimp it around. And you normally try to line up the black wire, which is your hot, with the brass colored side of the plug. And your wider blade on your male end would be the neutral wire. However, I don't think it really matters on this little Beechcraft or Hamilton Beach motor. Slide this back together. Now we'll plug it in, make sure everything still works properly. I was looking at these older ones online and they say that, you know, they wedged a piece of wood or foam in between the spring-loaded motor and the sewing machine so that you didn't develop a flat spot on this rubber wheel. This wheel's way out of round anyway, so I'm going to try to source out something that'll work for that. Anyhow, I'll get in the habit of putting a spacer in there. Okay, it's plugged in. We'll just see if it works. Quite a vibration due to this thing being out of round. So I'm going to try figuring out how to thread this and put the shuttle back in that holds the bobbin. And I'll try running a little piece of fabric through it, just see how it sews. Okay, so from the looks of it, the thread was wrapped around to come towards you when I took this apart. I'll slide the bobbin in. There we go. Just pull it all the way forward and back. It slips over the point of, there's a little point and a slot in there. And it ends up in a sort of a little hole at the end. There's a flat side to this shuttle, which I'm assuming rides against, there we go. I don't know if this self feeds through the loop or not. Okay, so I set the spool on there, brought it over this little affair. I don't know if the thread's supposed to go in between there. Perhaps I will this time. Then around the tensioner, or the thread tension, and through the take-up lever. That feels okay. Then around from the back of this little hook, down through that loop. I'm kind of making this up as I go. I haven't been able to find anything online specifically relating to this machine. And there's another little metal loop down through there and through the needle, through the eye of the needle, and then down into the back. Well, I don't know if that's correct, but we'll see what happens. I don't know if the thread automatically picks up the loop picks up the thread on the bobbin when the shuttle comes through or not. Try this very gently. It's a little messy, but try a different setting here. Well, it looks like it did sort of self-thread, but made a bit of a mess on the back. Let's try it again. Seems to be a bit of a dog's breakfast in the backside. Tighten up the tension here. I'll try that. Ah, that's better. Much better. That doesn't look bad, given my limited experience. My sister had said that this is quite capable of sewing heavier material, so I'm thinking it might work well when I go to make the front boat seats, cover the front boat seats on that old Delta craft that I'm sort of refurbishing. I'm going to try changing this setting. It goes from like 6 to 20, so it was on 6. Now I'll set it on 20. I don't know if that's the number of stitches per inch or what that refers to. Or maybe it's the speed that the dog feeds. Well, I guess that would change the distance of the stitch too. Hard to say. I might have to get a hold of my sisters to draw on their expertise, because I kind of know very little about these. I just broke the thread, so I backed the tension off a little bit. Alright, well, I'll play with this a little more, but I think as far as this video goes, I'm going to call this a win. I did go online and sort of get a handle on how this bobbin winder works. It looks fairly simple, so it's all good. The 100-year-old, maybe 80-year-old to 100 years Galonia lives to stitch another day. All right, have a good one. Bye for now.